Welcome back to another episode of Father Mick's Magic, exploring the mysteries of life and faith through the gift of magic. This one, I'm going to actually do the magic trick as a homily, because I do it so often as a homily and it's my natural way of doing it. But I hope that it prepares you. I just want to help prepare you to listen. And it's around the mystery of love. Love has to be the greatest of all the mysteries of our life. We as human people have this amazing capability of loving. And what's that mean to love? That's a great question. And I'm sure you've asked that question. What's it mean to be authentically loved by another? And this trick will say something about the mystery of love, and maybe afterwards we can keep exploring, some other aspects of this great mystery of love. Enjoy. Okay, we've come to another magic trick, and this is up there with my favourites. Probably they're nearly all up there with my favourites, but I just love the story of this trick because it's a story of about God's love. And I think, Sam, you said you would help me, so I invite you to come down now. And behind me, I've got two sponge balls, and one of them represents your love, and one of them represents God's love. So Sam, you can go and examine both balls, but what I want you to do is I want you to just come back and bring me God's love. Okay?
There you go.
So Sam brought me God's love, and he's correct. You know why I know this is God's love? Because the quality of God's love is that it will always multiply. And so you can examine those. And so I'm going to show you what can happen when your love and God's love gets together. Okay, so could you just go over to there to get the other one as well? Okay, so this one represents your love, okay? So let's place your love in my hand. And you need, if you want your love to grow, you need some of God's love in there as well. Okay? And why does God multiply love? One reason is God wants us to share that love. Share that love with someone who's lonely. Share that love with someone who's sad. Share that love with someone that needs more confidence, more encouragement, more belief in themselves. And so you need to give this love away. But usually when you give your love away, some people say, oh, but I won't have enough for myself. I won't have enough. But remember, your love's with God's love. If you stay connected to God's love, and what you'll see happening is that God's love and your love will multiply.
What?
So you can have a look at all those. Okay, so give me your love again. It doesn't matter. So don't forget to keep your love, keep it connected. Keep some of God's love in there. Otherwise, your love will dry up. What do you do with this love, Sam?
You multiply it.
Well, I'll multiply that, but what do I do with this one? Why do I multiply the love?
Because so everyone else has more love.
So others will have more love, so you give it away. Give it away, be free. Give that love away. Don't try to hold on to it. And trust that your love and God's love will just keep multiplying. So you can hold on to those again?
Yeah.
Okay? So you've got to, okay, I'm going to keep doing it till you get the idea that your love and God's love staying together will multiply. So what we do, we place some in there. Don't forget to make sure you put some of God's love in there. Otherwise, it won't multiply. And then what you do with this love, give it to somebody who's lonely or sad. Laura Lee also needs some. Now, that would be great if it happened like that always. But unfortunately in life, it doesn't always happen like that, Sam. Sometimes, ouch, that hurt. And when we feel hurt, it feels like our love shrinks. And Sam just hit my hand. Oh, he hit me that time. That hurt. And sometimes I can start to feel like God's love shrinks as well. And all of a sudden, it's all vanished. So God's love has vanished. Your love has vanished. And remember, you were giving that love away before. So you need to make sure you go with somebody who's very kind. I've got plenty of love in my pocket. And so what happens is you come along and you let somebody share their love with you. And so they share their love. And now you start to feel your love growing again. And then you reach out to God, even though you can't see God all the time, and let God's love come in with your love. And then what happens when your love and God's love gets together?
It multiplies.
It multiplies. But sometimes it doesn't multiply. Sometimes God's love takes your love and just makes it grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. Bigger and bigger. So sometimes it'll make it multiply, and sometimes it'll make it just multiply. Anyway, it always nurtures our hearts. A round of applause for Sam. Welcome back. Did you enjoy it? First of all, I hope you did. I hope you felt mystery and wonder. And I hope you picked up the two messages that I was trying to get across about God's love. God's love influences our love. And God's love multiplies our love. And the other image was God's love makes our love expand and grow and become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I wonder, and then I also had the point that pain shrinks our love and pain makes our love disappear. So I guess the first point I invite you to reflect on, is that true in your life? Do you find that when you're loved well by God, or sometimes through other people who are representing God and God's love's flowing through them, that multiplies your love? I hope so. Or do you find that your love sometimes, because of God's love or because of somebody else's love, is expanded? I hope so. And do you find also that when your love is there, but when you're hurt, it feels like your love vanishes? I wish I could say I hope not for that one. But I would think that it is true for so many people. And when we have a series of hurts come to us, what about the love of God? Does that feel like it vanishes as well? Again, I would say I hope not, but I'm pretty sure it's the experience of so many people. Is it your experience? And so the first point is that trick is trying to awaken you to these realities and these mysteries, because it's not clear what's happening. You know, think of when you have been authentically loved, maybe by a parent, maybe by a spouse, maybe by a really good friend. Doesn't our world change? Doesn't everything become technicolor rather than black and white? Don't we feel bigger and stronger because of that love? And so love is one of the greatest mysteries and one of the greatest challenges for us to grow in. And I hope in this trick it's reminding us that because God is love, that all love flows from God. My love is nurtured by God's love and multiplied or expanded by God's love. If I love by myself, Maybe, I know, someone gives me some love and I love, it feels like my love just gets smaller and smaller as I give it away. I don't have a source of love. And that's why I don't know, that trick is reminding me of where the source is. I'd like to also add a few more points about love. Writings of John Paul II. And John Paul II wrote a book, I'm not sure if it was a book or a paper, called Love and Responsibility. And this was a long time ago. It was while he was a priest, before, I think it was in the 1960s. It was even before he became a bishop and a cardinal, and well before he became Pope. But his book, Love and Responsibility, was all about what does it mean to love authentically and deeply. And if I can encourage you to grow in the reality of love through my magic trick, but maybe also through John Paul II's writings. And I'll just share with you one point. There's so many points in his writings, but one point, he concentrates on always loving the person. What do we usually do? I love your qualities or your attributes. I love you because maybe you are physically beautiful to me. Or I love you because you're funny. Or I love you because you're really good at sport. Or I love you because you're really rich. And so sometimes, usually, nearly always, we love another first of all because of their attributes. Now that's not wrong, but it's shallow, and it's only the beginning of love. If we don't learn to love the person and not just their attributes, we're failing on the journey of love. We're failing ourselves, and we will be shallow and quite unfulfilled, but we're also going to hurt the other person. If I can't love the person beyond their attributes, because those attributes are going to change, their beauty is going to fade. Maybe their sporting talents are going to fade as well. They're not always going to have them. Or even intelligence can fade. And so if you're loving the attributes, when my attributes fail, then you will stop loving me. But I'm still a person. I am a person, a child of God. And so the challenge in love is to learn to love the person, not just the attributes. And I think this is one of the great insights of John Paul II, or that he's the one that I've learned this from. And so I need to grow in my ability to appreciate the whole person that is indescribable, unrepeatable. And John Paul has another point that he makes, which I just can't remember at this saying, but even that unrepeatable, that you are unrepeatable, and that I appreciate that, and I learn to love that dimension. Maybe there's one other piece of wisdom that we can get from Thomas Aquinas, who was another great intellectual in our church. His definition of love was to will the good of the other person. What's that mean? To will the good of the other person. I like that because it reminds me love is not always feelings. You know, like sometimes you can have some attribute that really annoys me, that actually rubs me the wrong way. And so I can find it very hard to connect to your person. I'm blocked by that attribute. But I hear the wisdom of Thomas Aquinas to will the good of the other person. And so I can go beyond my feeling of irritation and annoyance. And I don't love that attribute that's annoying me, but I will the good of the other person. And again, I just find that's an amazing insight of how to grow in love. And so I hope that you appreciate love a little bit more through my magic trick. And I hope that you can appreciate the depths of love by those two insights that I've also gleaned for you from John Paul II to learn to love beyond the attributes to the person, the whole person, and also the wisdom of Thomas Aquinas to will the good of the other person. Maybe there's some other questions we can ask about this great mystery. Another question that is often raised about self-love and selfish love is that, well, we need to be loved ourselves first. And even in Matthew, I think he does say, love another as you would be loved. But that's coming out of the Old Testament. That was an Old Testament command to love. And love, as I hope I've pointed out, is a journey. It's not like you can love as John Paul II describes, or as Thomas Aquinas describes. You can't love at those depths when you're very young. You need to learn. You begin by loving attributes of another person, and then you go beyond that to the essence, to the dignity of the person. And it's also true in the scriptures, because what is at the end of the commands to love? What does Jesus say? He says, this is my commandment, love one another as I have loved you. And so he's saying, not love one another as you want to be loved. That's a good start, an excellent start. But if you want to reach the depths and the richness of love, learn to love as I have loved you. And when we look at it, how Jesus has loved us, Jesus has broken his body and spilled his blood. He has poured out his life for us. And that's how he's calling us to love each other. And so when people want to talk about a selfless love, you do need to feel that you are loved by God. So I agree, it's very hard to love without having felt we're loved. But we feel loved by God. And God loves us through Jesus and through people around us. It's an incarnational love. But then our challenge then is to love as he has loved us. And sometimes that stretches us to new levels. And when we're stretched, that's what is the capacity of God to love us more. And I know for me, I've felt that many times in my life. I've been called to love well beyond my own human love capacity. And when I love like that, it hurts. And sometimes I feel like I'm getting crucified. I feel like it's going to all collapse. But that's when God reaches in, and I believe the story of the resurrection starts to really happen in our lives. We must stay faithful and aligned in God, but then I let God love me, and I have a capacity for love that I never had before that. And so it's very hard. Is it the chicken or the egg? Which one comes first? We're loved by God, and then we pour it out with God for others. And there are many sidetracks and many ways we can get blocked. But I really encourage you to hear what Jesus has said, and maybe to reflect on the magic mystery and reflect on John Paul's mystery of loving the person, the dignity of the person, not just the attributes, and the wisdom of Thomas Aquinas. Learn and try it out. Put it into practice. Will the good of the other, even when you don't feel loving. Will the good of the other. And what are you going to do because you will the good of the other? You have to answer that question yourself. But if you're really willing the good of the other, you will want it to happen as well. And I think your heart will be transformed, and let God's love be flowing into your hearts in that process. Now it's time to conclude, and so I'd like to share with you a scripture passage. And again, on the theme of love, I think it's nearly the whole of the Bible is about God's love for us. But let me share with you from one of St. Paul's letters, love letters to the Corinthian community. In 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 10, Paul says, "For God is the one who provides seed for the farmer," and I would say love for us, "and then bread to eat. In the same way, he will provide and increase your resources, your capacity for love, and then produce a great harvest of generosity and pouring of yourself out, just as Jesus did." I've added a few of my words there, but so you can go and read the exact quotation, but it's saying the love comes from God and we're channels of that love for the world. Go forth and be loved by God and be a channel of his love for the world. Look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Are you searching for purpose of life? Discover your true identity. Stay tuned to Shalom World.